Greetings, true believers, and welcome to another episode of Dan Dashley Discusses, the web show where we talk about comic books. I tell you to buy them, borrow them, skip them. You know the drill by now. Today, we are going to go ahead and talk about the second issue of Jem and the Holograms, the new IDW series. It's been out for a couple weeks now, but with the new Jem and the Holograms trailer out, I figured it would be a good time to go ahead and talk about this comic. Plus, I've finally reached a point where I can put these out more consistently for you guys. So I figured now is as good a time as any. Now, I've already gone ahead and done a review of the first issue of Jem and the Holograms. It was actually the first thing we did on this channel. So if you wanted to go ahead and see what I think about the first issue and just some of the parts of the comic book as a whole I'm going to leave out in this review, go ahead and check that out. I'm sure it'll be on the related videos off to the side here. Jem and the Holograms as a series is written by Kelly Thompson, rookie comic book author, Sophie Campbell, veteran comic book artist, and Maria Robota, phenomenal colorist. The second issue promises on the cover and from all the promotional advertisements for it to be all about the Misfits, sort of the opposite side of the coin from Jem and the Holograms. While Jem and the Holograms were a synth pop band, the Misfits, they were like a glam rock kind of punkish band from back in, when that was prevalent in the 80s. Well, actually, it opens up with the last time page, one of my least favorite things in comic books, and really breaks the flow at the start of an issue for me. This comic, the second page, is actually starting with the Misfits, sort of music video from them, then we go from music video to, like a behind-the-scenes sort of thing. We get a lot of good behind-the-scenes with the Misfits sort of exploring the dynamic that they all have in the group, which mirrors pretty much the exact dynamic that they had in the cartoon. I view that as a positive. Their dynamic was very well established and overall enjoyable when you have Stormer, who doesn't kind of want to be in the Misfits, but it's, one of her only avenues as a rock artist, and you have Pizzazz and Roxy sort of pressuring her. Overall, the writing follows that same basic flow. We've got actually some deviation from just the Misfits when we see more about the behind the scenes of the Holograms. Not as much as the Misfits since we got that issue 1, but we do see a little bit of it here. We do also have the introduction of Rio, who was in the cartoon Jerica's love interest. And that actually brings me to a point about this issue that's probably the most prevalent thing about it. This is an issue about establishing relationships and romances right off the bat. We have Jerica and Rio, and in the cartoon Pizzazz also sort of went after Rio. We see a little bit of that here. We have that being established right away in the creepiest manner, where Rio stalks her on Twitter and then shows up at her house and is like, "Hey, I stalked you on Twitter. You want to go out with me?" And Jerica's like, okay. It's a really weird relationship. Kelly Thompson, if you want to have me care about this Jerica and Rio for reasons that aren't just I cared about them in the cartoon, you're going to have to work a little harder. And in addition to that, we also have Kimber and Stormer, who were teased as a romance by Thompson before this book even came out. She was like, yeah, they're going to be a romance, which is interesting. We actually have, right off the bat, as soon as Kimber talks about Stormer, the first thing she says is that she should go out with her, and then a couple pages later, boom, they have a date already established after having met each other like once. In my opinion, while it is interesting to see a couple like this in a mainstream comic book like Jem and the Holograms by a big company like IDW, I think that the pacing for this relationship is a little off. It's a little fast. And while I'm not saying that relationships can't be that, I'm saying that it creates a weird flow for us as a comic book reader. In fact, I would argue that more relationship stuff happens in this issue than the main plot of the Holograms trying to make it. What that says about the future for this book, I don't know. The book also kind of ends with, the Misfits seeing that Stormer is in this relationship, or at least starting this relationship with Kimber, and maybe they're going to go ahead and try and break it up. So maybe we're going for more of a relationship drama than the high-octane music world that the cartoon brought us. We just have to wait and see. Overall, the writing suffers from some of the same stumbles that Thompson had in issue 1. Some things are just a bit off. No character would ever jump up and down and talk about it, oh, you're so cute, you should date me. That's bad dialogue, and I think that it comes across as overly childish. Granted, Kimber is only 18. Same time, though, she's 18. She's an adult. She's been on her own. Instances like that, or Rio explaining how he found Jerica, are just really, really odd. One thing I did like about the writing is it explored that the Misfits are not super popular. While they are a very popular act, in the music industry. Some of the insiders don't like him, and on Twitter they don't exactly have the biggest following. So it's an interesting dynamic that I think is supposed to mirror some modern music acts. One final gripe about the writing: Thompson, hire a musician to write your lyrics. Some of these lyrics, especially from the Misfits, come across as some Linkin Park fiasco, and that's really not what the Misfits were all about. Certainly not back in the day, and certainly not what I think they would be all about right now. That's the tiny nitpick, though. On to the art. Sophie Campbell does some amazing things with the page layout, which is, if you recall, one of the things I complained most about issue 1. A lot of the pages were really samey with just panel, 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 panel. And in this one, particularly in the music video scenes, Sophie really steps it up. We've got music videos that are perfectly mirroring the high-octane energy that the Misfits had, perfectly mirroring the great light tricks that the Holograms used to do. It all around comes together as part of a package that is phenomenal. It's truly a step in the right direction for this book, and when you're dealing with things like synergy that can make anything happen, and you're dealing with a series that has always been about music being like a magical force that can do anything, you need to have these interesting page layouts, and Sophie has it on the right track finally. And Roboda does, again, phenomenal work packing the colors in where she needs them. We've got a lot of tight up-and-close shots on some really phenomenal stuff, and she doesn't fail to give us consistent skin tone, consistent coloring for the hair, consistent, just weird ambient shapes that are I assume, from synergy in the hologram stuff, that are just hard to really get correct. And between Campbell and Roboda, we've got a whole package coming together artistically that I wouldn't change nearly anything about. A couple nitpicks about the art: Rio isn't exactly as appealing of a character design as, say, any of the Holograms or any of the Misfits. He looks kind of like a generic anime kid. And that's fine, I get it. I don't particularly care enough about Rio that it's going to break the comic for me. I'm just saying that it's not Sophie's greatest design choice. In addition to that, she was kind of fluctuating a couple times with main characters in the background, having their body type be different from when they're in the foreground. I know that that might just be an artist error, or it might be an issue of timing, but sometimes Roxy would fluctuate to looking like Stormer and then looking like Pizzazz. It's a nitpick, but at the same time, Sophie's been around for so long that nitpicks like that aren't exactly undeserved. Overall, I think the second issue of Gem and the Holograms paints sort of a picture of continuing what the first one laid down. I don't particularly love that this was more relationship, less plot. I want the plot to get going because while the relationships in Gem and the Holograms were always interesting, they were never as much so as the just bonkers stuff happening in the main plot. The art is still amazingly consistent, and it looks like Sophie's going to step up her game paneling-wise and page layout-wise. I'm excited to see more of that. Roboda's still bringing the colors in the manner that I absolutely adore. Overall, I'm going to continue to tell you to go ahead and buy Gem the Holograms. So that's all I have for you this week, True Believers. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, follow us on Facebook, Twitter. All that's in the stuff below. Leave a comment for what you want me to review next. Tell me what you think. Do you think this series isn't worth buying anymore? Do you think it's worth borrow? Do you think it's worth a skip? Remember, these are just my opinions, so let me know what you think in the comments below. And until next time, see you later, True Believers.